and I hit a bump, and the whole engine just came up on the front and boom, boom, and slammed back down.
What?
He just ran up to the wolf and just grabbed it right around the head, just like this. He goes, go ahead and knife him. What they would do is they would punch each other on the shoulders back and forth like this in order to keep from freezing. So I just nosed it over and pulled the throttle back, and we rode it in. You're tucking against the side of the mountain, you're coming down, and it's like not getting any better. You're like, I'm gonna break out, and it's like, I'm not. And then, terror sets in.
Welcome to the Coffee and a Hanger podcast. There's no one better suited to talk about how to survive flying in Alaska's backcountry than my guest today, Kirk Ellis. From how to correctly cross a swift-flowing, icy cold river, flying and landing in the mountains, what to do if you run out of gas above the clouds, and how to survive 3 nights stranded on Arctic sea ice at 30 below zero Fahrenheit. When you're done with this podcast, you'll know how to survive Alaska's backcountry. And this is for entertainment purposes only. Ladies and gentlemen, Alaska bush pilot, hunting guide, aircraft builder, and STOL flying pioneer, Kirk Ellis. Now, before we get into the podcast, I just want to remind you, if you want to support the podcast, you can go to our sponsor, sportaircraftseats.com. And if you want to stay up to date on new additions to the Coffee and a Hanger brand, go to coffeeandahanger.com and join our email list. Enjoy the podcast.
Him and Dad hunted wolves a lot, and Wendy flew, and Dad was a gunner. They had shot some wolves, and they landed, and they were picking them up. And they walked over to this one wolf, and he got up. And when he got up, they were away from the airplane. They didn't bring a gun because they thought they were all dead. And the wolf stood up, and the wolf was hit in the side of the face here, and it appeared that he was blind. And so when they walked over to it, it got up, and it was kind of looking around, and it didn't know they were there. Wendy told Dad, he goes, well, you got your knife, don't you? And Dad goes, yeah. And he goes, okay. And he just ran up to the wolf and just grabbed it right around the head, just like this, and was going to pick it up. And he told Dad, he picked it up like this, and he goes, go ahead and knife him. And Dad was just like, and Dad said when the wolf realized that he had a hold of him, he said the dang thing just went berserk. Yeah. And he said the teeth was right next to Wendy's face and popping, just crack, crack, crack like this. And he was like, yeah, go ahead and knife him, Bill. And he said they were just like going in the snow, just turtling and rolling and tumbling. And he said, I couldn't knife because I would knife him, And I know it's kind of a brutal story, but and so finally, Dad said he finally knifed him, and he said, boy, when he knifed him, he said the dang thing went completely crazy and took off running with him and drug him out through the snow.
He's holding on?
And oh yeah, he's still got a hold of his head because he can't let it go. If he lets it go, it'll get him, because he's too close to it. And finally the wolf ran, and Dad had hit him good enough with a knife and killed him. And that's Wendy. And I mean,
just like didn't think it through all the way.
No, it's just like we just need to do this, and that's the way it is, with him. And
wow.
But Wendy was, man, he was a character. He was a natural pilot, is what he was, and that anything he got in, he could fly, from a mall to whatever, Super Cubs or 185s or anything like that. And he was hard on stuff. He used everything, pretty hard and everything like that. But he taught me a lot about flying. And but Wendy wasn't a hot rod pilot. He flew thousands of hours and had very little. He taxied into a hole on the end of the runway that had washed out and bent his prop. And he tipped one airplane upside down in 18 years of flying. And I mean like hard flying. And so no, Wendy was.
Can you explain what you mean by hard flying, or define that?
Yeah, short strips, bad weather, and a lot day in, day out. Sometimes he would take 2 sheep hunters in 2 days. So I mean, he had to find strips to land. He had to go in and land, and then spend the night. And he'd go out and get a sheep, come back.
He would guide them and fly them in 2 days.
He guided and flew the sheep hunters and a lot of the moose hunters, and then he would take us with him for packing moose meat and cutting up moose meat and helping him do that kind of stuff.
Would you guys go in the Cub with him in this is a Super Cub?
Yeah.
Would you guys get in with the client, or were you flying your own plane, or?
No, at that time we were young, and
So
we were in the baggage compartment most of the time. Yeah, and then the client would be in the front, in the regular seat, or he would come back and get us, bring the client back, drop the client off, take us back to pack the moose meat out, and do it that way. Or sometimes Wendy taught me how to hunt sheep. Dad taught me a little bit, but Dad was not a patient guy. He was the type of guy, you do this, and if you don't do it, you're stupid. Just get out of my way. You know what I mean? And he was good, but he was harsh. You know what I mean? Busy. And Wendy taught me how to stalk animals and the wind and different
the nuances.
Right. And when the wind would change, when you were close to sheep and stuff, and what to do, what direction to get, and move really fast to a different side of the canyon or something, things like that.
Yeah.
That you learned from him. And so no, Wendy was a big part of my life growing up, and he taught me a lot about flying. He let me fly the airplane quite a bit while he was flying, and
like if you were in the back seat,
but just in the back seat. Yeah.
So what did he take? Let's get into that. What did he teach you?
Well, one thing he taught me was not to be haughty. A lot of guys in those days were pretty sharp turn guys and steep climbs and quick approaches, and a lot of stuff went on because they were busy. In other words, you're leaving a strip and you're in a big hurry, and so home is this way, and so you just take off. And as soon as you break ground, you just roll it in a bank and turn and go, and you're out of there and going. And Wendy was not that guy, and it was always take off, lower the nose, level the plane, and then turn, and then that's what he would say, see what they're doing, don't do that. If you have 10,000 hours underneath your belt, you probably can survive it because you know how to do it. But he said, a young pilot like you won't survive it. Eventually you'll get a wind shear, you'll get something, the engine will cough or something like that, and then you can't get back. and those were the things, and flying in bad weather, and things like that.
Terry was saying about Wendy that he really admired his flying. And he said that he was not, I didn't really understand what he was saying. Maybe you could kind of talk about this a little bit. He was calm.
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
I never seen Wendy panic, about anything. And even getting in really bad weather and stuff like that, he would always just, he would grumble and cuss about it and just you know what I mean? But he would work his way through it. And he flew up, and you don't really think about it until you do try to duplicate. But I mean, he even flew his P-11 up on the North Slope in the middle of winter with 5 gauges in the front, oil pressure, oil temperature, gas gauge, and a compass that didn't work. And I always asked him, you know what I mean? It was like,
that is crazy.
Well, the deal, and he said, well, you just have to pay attention where you are and look behind you a lot. And then, the drifts and the snow and everything, and that's how you keep your compass heading and everything, but never really elaborated that much on it. Just
that's some old school shit.
That is
that's like pre-war stuff,
right? That's 1940 stuff and back, Merrill days and all those guys, and how they navigated and stuff like that. So he would navigate that way, and then I think being absolutely totally calm was another key to navigation, and not because you know how it is when things start going wrong and you start getting a little dry mouth and you start getting concerned and you're like, I don't know if I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and I can't see nothing, and you're very concerned, with the man. And I don't think Wendy did.
They never get like that.
I don't think so. And if he did, he didn't never show it, And so
that's not me.
Yeah, I know. It gets a little bit, yeah.
I can see how that would really improve your cognitive abilities to be calm versus getting frustrated.
Right. You get frustrated and you're trying to make something happen that isn't going to work, and so you have to figure out, okay, well, if I don't know where I'm at, because, nowadays we have all the modern equipment. Where then they didn't, you know what I mean? And so they had to figure it out how to get home and how to get back, and how to maintain heading. Dad was really good at it also, and if you think about when they were in the old days up out of Point Hope tracking polar bear, they had a whiskey compass that didn't work very well. And so when they tracked outbound, they had to keep track of all the turns tracking a polar bear. And so because there's no reference, there's the drifts and the snow, and you kind of know what it's going. So if you're tracking a polar bear and he's doing all this out here and everything like that, and you're making turns and you're working him, and then you get into the excitement of landing, shooting the polar bear, and then you're at the deal, and then you get back in the plane and you're like, okay, you know what I mean? Now I need to head back home, and so.
How do you track a turn? You could talk about that. You mean like timing it? Like I'm going to.
Yeah. So in other words, let's say you're going 180 degrees for 30 minutes, and then you turn 20 degrees and you go 40 minutes that direction. Then you turn 30 degrees the other direction and you go that way. And so he was able, and your dad was really good at math.
You're saying they were keeping track, taking notes on all that while they're tracking the bear, turns and runs, and they're like, okay, that's this amount of time.
Because they needed to know exactly where they were because of the gas. They only had a limited amount of gasoline.
That's crazy.
And so they had to know where they were and when they were. And even when he went down several times out there on the ice, he knew where he was pretty much.
Because of gas, running out of gas.
Running out of gas because the wind would switch out there and come up out of nowhere, and they have 50-mile-an-hour headwind. Well, they figured on not having a 50-mile-an-hour headwind going back. And so, everything went to pot on them, and they would run them as far as they could, and then they would start running out of gas. And
wow.
And that's another story. I don't know. I'm jumping around.
No, What
Dad spent. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the last. Tell me if I start repeating myself.
You haven't repeated yourself yet.
Yeah, I have a habit. And so, but Dad spent 5 days out there, him and Ralph Marshall,
on the
ice. And they went down because they ran out of gas. And that's exactly what happened to them.
Where were they exactly? I mean, like
they were off the coast of Point Hope, and they were 43 miles off the coast.
Wow. And
he knew he was 43 miles off the coast from his tracking. And he knew what direction the land was. But see, back then, once you were on the ground, the radios weren't strong enough to do much. And then the weather was really bad, and so it broke up the deal. And nobody else was out there close enough to him to where he could talk to him because nobody was flying because the weather was so bad.
Wow.
And so the wind blew 30, 40 miles an hour or more.
Was he with Wendy on this?
No, he was with Ralph. Ralph Marshall was another hunting partner of Dad's.
So they're out there.
Yeah, so they didn't have enough gas, so they sat down. They had a guy and his wife with them, and
2 planes or just
2 planes. We had PA-12 and a Super Cub, and so they stayed in the planes, and so they had 2 sleeping bags. So they gave those to the clients, and they stayed in the PA-12, and they were able to lay down in the PA-12. There was enough room in the PA-12 for them to stay in the PA-12, and then Dad and Ralph stayed in his Super Cub. And so what they did was they took the front seat out and turned it around, and that's so they could face each other. And they had a can of Sterno, the little survival Sterno thing.
Like it's like a stove or something?
Yeah, it's just oil. It's a can of oil that you can light.
Mm.
And it makes a little blue flame. And he said it was enough to warm them up a little bit. But he said after a while, what they would do is they would punch each other and on the shoulders back and forth like this in order to keep from freezing, because he said they would just get so cold that they couldn't do anything. So they would, box back and forth with each other.
Why didn't they just snuggle?
Well, I don't think they were snugglers. They were more of the beaters. They would beat each other.
Like, bro, we need to do something here. Let's beat each other up.
Yeah. But
it's crazy.
Yeah, after 4 days, Dad said that he figured, well, the weather isn't going to clear up, and I'm 43 miles offshore. And so they had a polar bear, so he cut some meat off the polar bear's skull and put those in his pocket, and he took the compass out of his airplane, and he was going to walk it. And he figured he could make shore in a day, 2 days.
What's he going to do when he gets to shore?
Well, then he'll walk the shoreline to Point Hope.
And he was within walking distance of Point Hope.
When he hit the shore.
Okay.
So he had probably 60 miles to walk. And
of course, he's got to know whether he goes north or south once he hits the shore, right?
Right. So he's got to figure that one also. So if he goes the wrong direction, well, then that's not a good thing either. But he said that on the day that he started to walk, that he said the weather started breaking. And so they thought, well, and it was kind of cleared out a little bit and everything like that. And so he said that, maybe I tried radio reception. And then Ralph said, he said, there's a little gas in my airplane. And he said, if we can get my airplane started, I might be able to get high enough to get a radio signal out. And so Ralph took off. They had the old blowtorches, so they heated the airplane with the old blowtorch up and got it started. And then Ralph took off and circled up as high as he could. And he actually ran out of gas climbing. And so he got on the radio and started talking, and he was just kind of broadcasting in the blind where he was at, what he was doing, and then down. And he said, then come back and landed with a dead engine. And so then they were there. And so Dad was like, well, maybe they got out a signal. We'll wait one more day. And one of the other polar bear hunters had heard him and heard where their location was. And so the next day, the weather broke. And then there was a pilot got close enough to them to where they could call with what little batteries they had left.
True. Yeah, that's the other thing. What were the temperatures, do you think?
Oh, it was in the 30 below. And
no big deal.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. And the thing, but on the other side of the fence where we were, and that was my mom, of course, I've always one of the toughest ladies in the world, and that some people came to the house and told her, they said, look, Bill's down on the ice. He's been down for 4 days. He's gone.
There's no way he's surviving out there.
Yeah, he's not. The weather has been just horrifying. The winds have been just screaming. And, you need to expect the worst. And, she told him, she goes, did you find them? And they're like, no. And he said, she goes, well, and they wanted to pack all of us up and take us out of Nebezna because that's where we were in Nebezna. And they said, you're going to be here by yourself. And so you need to go take you to the town or somewhere, take you to Anchorage. And she was like, no. And
why?
It's a way people did back in the days. It's like a woman with 3 kids in the middle of nowhere, and we need to rescue her and get her out of there.
Yeah, but she'd been out there trapping.
Yeah, she'd been out there. She was perfectly fine. There was no problems. And so she was like, no. She goes, she said, if you haven't found him, he's alive. And that,
wow,
you know what I mean? And said, we need to wait. And she said that he's plenty capable of taking care of himself. And so she was just dug in on that. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of days later, well, then they, it was actually probably a week or 2 weeks before we even knew that he had made it out, and because we're so far back in, and the road is.
Yeah, it's got to get from up there and then to
and all the communications has got to go, and there's no radios, no phones where we were at all. And so somebody had to come in and tell us. And finally somebody did, and I believe somebody came in, the neighbor down below, he had a dog team, and he came in. And he had talked to somebody who had talked to somebody that said that he had made it out, and just things like that from the old times, you know what I mean? And people.
Yeah. How old were you then when that happened?
At that time, it would have been probably 5 or 6,
Do you remember it?
I do, yeah. I do remember that, and Mom kind of sheltered us from that.
Mm-hmm.
And because we were just like, well, what's wrong with Dad? And she goes, nothing. He's fine. And they say, well, he said he was lost and everything. No, he's not lost. He knows where he is. He's just down right now, and he'll be back. She just, boom. She just nipped it.
So she literally was telling the exact truth then. She knew exactly what was going on.
She knew what was going on. Yeah.
Wow.
Mentally, but.
That's the kind of stuff that is like, that's an Alaska pioneer type story, man. I love that.
Yeah.
You got the woman at home with the kids. She's trapping and doing all the stuff she does, taking care of the homestead, and
mm-hmm.
Oof.
Yeah, and there's so much of that and just story after story of Dad going down, and we picked up on those parts on how to survive and things like that. And Dad was tough, no doubt about it. He was the type of person that he would try about anything. Also, I mean, he would tackle stuff head on. When it comes to things like that, and walking out. I mean, he crashed an airplane probably 15 miles from the house, and he knew that everybody would be worried about him, and so he just ran back to the house.
Yeah.
Across two major rivers, and
what time of year was that?
In August. Yeah.
How did he get across those rivers?
You get a big stick and try to hold yourself and hope that you make it. And as long as it doesn't get above, if you got a really good stick, as long as the water doesn't get above your belt in the Navesna area, right in here, you can almost hold yourself. Without a stick, you can't hold yourself above the knees. It'll take you down. And but with a stick, and if you're really careful, you can get.
What if it takes you down?
You're pretty much dead. Yeah, because none of us swim. Dad was a really good swimmer, but yeah.
I love the way you explain things. So I've always liked it.
Well, and so that's what kept you thinking before you tackled something like that.
So what if you can swim? Do you just kind of swim and hopefully you'll end up a quarter mile downriver, but you'll get on the other side?
Right. I've been lucky enough to get knocked down in the edge and being able to hit the bottom a couple of times and grab a hold of something and keep pulling yourself to the side and working yourself. But with me, if I got in the main current or something like that, the current is too strong and it'll keep pulling you out to the center and it'll roll you underneath because the water's rolling underneath. And so you're in trouble, and you just don't want to go there.
When you say major rivers, that's the thing that I'm like amazed by Alaska about. Like you're flying over, like, oh, there's a little creek, you land next to it, and it's like you could just walk to the other side. And you're like, this is a big, this is
this is serious water.
This is serious, and it's just like a little side creek.
Yeah,
the water is so big.
Yeah, and that's what Nabesna means. That whole area is strong water. And so it dates all the way back to the native people. When they walked through there, they knew that those rivers were really strong, and they're real steep and fast. And
they're probably not super warm.
Oh yeah, your feet go numb just in seconds. You can't feel your feet. That's why you don't want to ever cross. A lot of people strip their shoes off and stuff and walk across barefoot, and you don't. Your feet go numb, and you'll cut your feet up, and you won't even know it. And until you get on the other side, and then you got problems.
So how many times did your dad crash out somewhere or run out of gas or something where he was stranded out there and you guys didn't know where he was?
Probably not more than about 3 or 4 times. The old tires that they had, they had tubes in them, and then the spacers in them and that stuff. And so nothing was really right. And so they wired them, bolted them together and made them work. And so what would happen is the air pressure would get down in them. And so that tire would turn on the rim and it would pull the stem out of the tire, out of the tube. And you would have a flat. And if you were lucky, it didn't completely come out on landing, but most of the time it come out on landing. And so when it came out on landing, most of the time it would flip you upside down when the tire would go on it. And so he did that over across from us. And at the time, Dad was actually just cleaning out the camp and stuff. And he pulled a tire like that. And we didn't fly at that time. And he was gone for like 2 days. And so we were like, we knew that something had happened. But he rebuilt the tire. And the old stems on them were brass, and they were bolted into the tube. And so they kind of went in, and then there was a big washer that went on them, and that had pulled out. And so he was able to take the tire all apart and bolt that tube back in.
How did he lift the plane up and get it all off and stuff?
He had an axe, and the cabin was there, so it had stuff in it. And so he built levers and poles and did the old lever trick and got it up as best as he could.
What's the old lever trick?
Well, you like right underneath the landing gear and everything, you put some blocks there, and then you use a pole and you pick it up, put another, and pick it up and put another block underneath it until you get it high enough. And he didn't have any way to air up the tire. And so what he did was he got it all blocked up the way he wanted it, and then he built a big fire, and he threw the tire in the fire. And he heated the tire until it was almost burning, and it aired up the tire. And then he threw the tire on and took off.
So he heated up the air inside the tire,
Mm-hmm.
and then put the cap on it.
Yeah.
And
threw it on the airplane and then took off. Well, it was the deal. Well, it went flat as soon as it got cold.
Right.
And so he had to land it back at the house with the flat tire on it.
I want to talk to you today about something that is very concerning involving the fleet of small aircraft that we have today. What if I told you that someone had done a structural repair on your aircraft, had never told you, your mechanic did not know about it, and it was not logged in your logbooks? Now, of course, as a seat upholstery guy, I'm talking about something relating to the seats of your aircraft. If you have a Cessna aircraft, one of the old 180s or early 172, that airplane is nearly 70 years old. And a lot of those seats have never been upholstered. But here's the other thing. The ones that have been upholstered, a lot of times, the mechanic and the owner never inspected the seat frame. You may think, well, how is this possible? What happens is owners of aircraft, they take their seats out of the airplane and they take it to an upholstery shop and they say, here, reupholster my seats. And here's a guy that normally does boats and couches and furniture. But a lot of times they tear the old upholstery shop off, and guess what? They find damage in there. Damage that the owner didn't know about because it was covered by upholstery. And they repair it because they're trying to get the job done and get it out the door. And so the owner shows up 3 weeks later and picks up their beautiful seats, puts them in the airplane, goes flying. This sounds like a crazy scenario, but is definitely a scenario that happens way more than you would think. Now, why do they never get inspected? Is it because of mechanic neglect? Not necessarily. We all know about the Cessna seat rail AD. That AD was created because the seats were sliding back on the seat rails at the most inopportune time. That has killed multiple people. But that AD does not cover Piper seats, which could have the same issue, and it doesn't cover other parts of the seat frame. It only covers the part of the seat frame that attaches to the seat rail and the seat rail itself. But there are a lot of structural components to that seat that never get inspected. The problem is that most upholstery completely covers the seat frame. It covers parts of the seat frame that should never be obscured. For example, where the backrest pivots to the frame. That is a very critical point, and in a lot of seats, it's completely covered up by the upholstery. I'm going to show you some examples of this, and then I want to talk about the solution. Okay, this first one is kind of just for fun because it's so extreme. This is the most outrageous example I have of what is your upholstery hiding. A customer literally brought me this seat and wanted me to upholster it. And once I tore the old upholstery off, this is what I found. This is another example of what is your upholstery hiding. Obviously, this frame has since been cannibalized, but as you can see, the frame broke right here. If there was upholstery on this frame, you obviously wouldn't be able to see this. But if it had all its legs and it was attached to the seat rail, you would be able to rock the back rest of this and it would not move because it's secured to the seat rail. But this break would cause there to be stress in other parts of the frame. And let me show you one other one. One of the most common breaks that I see is when holes have been drilled on the front side of a seat frame and then they put screws, sheet metal screws into it to hold on like a plate or something. And as you can see, if it's on the front of the seat frame, that is going to crack like 100%. So imagine your seats broke in that way, and now you have extra stress on where these holes are. It could all lead to something catastrophic. I want to talk to you about the way upholstery should be done. You should have your mechanic strip the frames, inspect the frames, repair the frames, and then paint them and ready them for the new upholstery. And then your mechanic should be the one installing the new upholstery, or you with your mechanic's approval and supervision. And that is where we come in. We make seat upholstery kits that are so easy to install that literally anyone with any skill level can do it in 5 to 10 minutes per seat. In addition to being easy to install, it eliminates the problem of future inspection. Number one, the upholstery does not cover up critical parts of the frame that should be inspected regularly. I'm talking like pre-flight regularly. Number two, it is so easy to remove and reinstall the upholstery without damaging the upholstery because of how our system works, that a mechanic can take the seat upholstery off while the seat is still in the airplane and put it back on in 5 to 10 minutes. Go to sportaircraftseats.com. You can design and order your seats right there. We have a library of installation and instructional videos, and every order you place helps support future episodes of the Coffee and a Hanger podcast. Let's get back to the podcast.
And so he had to land it back at the house with the flat tire on it. And it went pretty well. He didn't flip it upside down, but he nosed it up when he landed it there. But he got it back.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I never thought of heating a tire up.
I know. It was a lot.
And I'm just like, it's one of those stories that it's like, oh yeah, cool. And then you're like, wait a minute. Like, how did he put it? How long did it take him to put it back on? Or did he just build the fire under the wing?
Yeah, put it right in the fire. And so we'll never know exactly. It's just those were the stories when you're a kid. He's telling you these stories. But it helped me out years later because he told me how he straightened the prop on it. And what he did was he got the prop off, and because he only had one wrench, and so he had to break up the kitchen knives in the cabin to use shims to make a 9/16 wrench to take the prop off. And so what he did is he packed the prop around until he found two big forked trees. And then he had to tie a pole on the prop to make it long enough so we would have enough of a cheater bar on it to straighten the prop. And so he straightened the prop between two trees and then put it back on the plane. And years later, I nosed mine up, and we had gone hunting, and I said I wouldn't be back for 4 or 5 days. And so it's like everybody knows that I went hunting and I'm not going to be back for 4 or 5 days, and here I wrecked my airplane. And so it was just like, and it really takes the fizzle out of hunting. You know, you're just like, I don't want to go hunting now. I just want to go home.
So you bent your prop, but you're at the beginning of the 4 or 5 days.
Right. That was the first day. And I had, I landed in. It really wasn't that bad because I landed in and I kind of misjudged the runway a little bit and got off the edge of it, and I was almost stopped, and it just nosed me up. And so, and it had bent the prop probably 4 or 5 inches back, you know, enough to where it just won't work. But I learned a hard lesson because I was like, you know, young, and I remember Dad doing this, so no big deal. So I got the prop off and found me a tree, and I had to walk a long ways. But anyway, and then straightened it out, put it back on, fired it up, and it shook a little bit, you know, and I was just like, I'm good to go. You know what I mean? And I didn't really have any wing damage or anything like that to it. So I was great. But then but I never opened the cowling to inspect it and to look at the deal. I've been a prop. So what? And then I taxied up in and I took off, and I was flying back home, and it was only a short flight. It was probably 40-minute flight back to the house. And I was just happy as a clam. It was vibrating, you know what I mean? And I was just going along, and I hit a bump, and the whole engine just came up on the front and boom, boom, slammed back down.
What?
And I was just like,
what?
I broke the engine mount. And I didn't look.
Suddenly not happy as a clam. Like you can go from happy to not happy.
Yeah, I went to eat, you know, it's just, I went to Terra, you know, and every bump I hit, the front cowling would move up. And I thought, well, maybe the cowling's just loose. But it wasn't. One of the legs had broken. And the only thing that saved me was, you know, the other leg was holding. Well, how long? You know, before it came back through the prop, came back through the windshield, you know, and so I throttled back and just hoped for the best and flew it in. But it had popped the rear gear leg on one side and broke it right off. And, you know.
The rear gear leg?
That was the rear gear, it'd be the rear leg of the engine mount, the one that doesn't have the brace on it. You know, they have a brace on it, and then there's one leg that just sticks down. And so it was causing the engine just to boom, boom.
Yeah. So the other three were
They were holding and they were flexing.
but they're flexing enough. It's
Right.
instability.
Yeah, it was enough to make you.
Wow, that is nuts. Yeah, that's a really great lesson, isn't it? Like
It
you're
is.
just so focused on the one thing.
Right. You're just like, well, this is what's wrong, and I'll fix this, and I'll just go. And I was barely 20 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and so I
Doing what Dad does.
had not much mechanics, or anything like that. And so it was just like, well, this is easy, you know what I mean? And then it's like, it's not easy, and of course it's a different world now with the helicopters slinging stuff in and everything like that. But, and the old,
And the inReach.
yeah. And you call somebody now, gee whiz, we're getting cell coverage just about everywhere now.
When you're alone in the wilderness, how do you stay sane? Because I feel like that's an example of sort of, you're not all with it. And when you're with someone, you kind of bounce ideas off. You say something to them, and then even if they don't even respond to you, you're perceiving it through their point of view, and it helps you to figure out if what your thoughts are sane or not.
Right.
But when you're alone, it's different.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we grew up alone, and out there a lot, and a lot of trapping and different things like that. But you're right. It's like, me and my brother Cole, we trapped together all the time. And so, we were always within distance of each other.
Yeah.
And so you were able to bounce ideas off each other. It's like you're going to cross a river or something and it's really bad and the ice is really weak and you're both looking at it and you're just like, well, and then there's always one, it's like, I don't think that's a good idea. And then, well, I think we can make it. And so then you're just like, well, is it worth it? And so then you can it's the same thing. It may have been that if somebody else would have been there, they were just like, I wonder if there's any other damage on the plane.
Right.
And it would have been like, oh, maybe I should look. But you're kind of, especially for your first accident and, you're embarrassed, you're like this, and it's my plane. And it wasn't easy for me to get an airplane. I had to build it, and piece at a time and, find pieces and buy pieces and stuff like that. And so then you're just like, man, now I've got to buy another prop and I got to do this. And you're thinking
about all this stuff that really doesn't matter at that moment.
At that moment, it's not part of it at all.
Yeah.
And you need to just shut yourself down and get quiet. And first thing is don't just attack it. Same thing if it's laying upside down. It's like, well, if the gas is running out of it, try to catch some gas in case you need it, but, most of the time it's like, oh, I need to get that right back over again. And I'll hook a rope onto it. I'll pull on it. I'll do this. And then you'll wreck it, or if you have some friends that are going to help you and then they wreck it even worse. And so you do thousands of dollars worth of damage to the plane. I've seen that done a lot, especially if people get a hold of one, if they can get a pickup truck to it, especially on the side of the road or something, where somebody's landing on the road and they flip their airplane over and they're like, I need to do something really quick. They'll tie a rope on the tail wheel, hook it onto a pickup truck and take off.
Just slam.
And woo-wee, there's not much left when you get done.
When we get this edited, I'm going to send it to my friend because that's just exactly what happened, I think, which is in an attempt to get the plane over, and it fell a little harder than I thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it will. And so you have to make a plan.
Yeah. Back to the creek crossing thing and the being alone thing. I feel like that's a great example of when you're alone, your judgment. You look at a creek and go, can I cross that creek? And you're judging it, and you're by yourself, and it's like, you start to second guess your thoughts. And even if you're like initially confident, then you go, man, is it right? And then not having someone to talk to and go, no, this creek's about the same size as that other creek we crossed.
Yeah.
You just in your own brain are trying to do this calculation. And I think a lot of times I second guess myself like crazy when I'm alone.
Right.
Because I don't trust my judgment maybe.
Yeah. And learning to read water and stuff like that, and that helps quite a bit. But most of the time, it's really better not. If you're by yourself,
to not take those kind of risks.
Not take those kind of risks because you get yourself in trouble, and then you drag a lot of people out to try to rescue you.
Yeah, you're going to put other people in.
You put other people in danger because of something you did. For example, on the creek, when you walk up to the creek, you know, and it's pretty simple. You walk up to a creek, just lay down on the ground and look at it. And if it's completely flat across, then okay, that's the first thing. It's like maybe. Okay, if it has a rise in it, don't go near it. It'll take you out. You know what I mean? And
that means that there's something going on under.
That means that it's what it's doing is she's rocketed down the center, and it's deep, and it's rolling, and it rises in the center. And so the water won't be absolutely flat. It'll actually come up like that in the center, especially the Navajo River, the Jacksina River, all those glacier-fed rivers.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and so if it's rising in the middle at all, it's really bad. And so if it's completely flat, and then you look at all your ripples going across, because it's muddy, you can't see anything. And so if the ripples are really close together going across it and everything, well, then there's a chance. And you can actually see a route a lot of times through there. And you can walk that route and stay on top of the gravel. But the thing about it is most of that gravel is moving underneath your feet and sinking. And so you have to take that into consideration too. And if you can see rocks sticking up, that's the best. You know, and they're small rocks, you know, then you're okay to go. But likewise, you have to really pay attention on it.
Dude, there's this one time I'm thoroughly convinced I almost killed myself trying to cross a river. It was the Little Sioux up in Hatcher Pass. I was trying to get across it. I had landed my paraglider on the opposite side of the road, and I realized that I was down in this. I basically where I was, I could not go upstream or downstream. I had to climb the mountain in order to get out of there. And it was Devil's Club and stuff. And I had my paraglider bag on me, pretty heavy, 25-pound bag, bulky. And so I unclipped it because I was like, if I go in, I'm going to lose my paraglider. That's the thing that's going to happen. And I started walking across that creek, and I got about halfway across, and it was just too much. And I went back, and I tried to get across that creek 3 or 4 times, and I just, it was so stupid. And so I turned around finally about 3 or 4 tries, and I was all alone.
Sure.
You know, am I being an idiot right now? Am I about to kill, I'm not experienced with that. So I just climbed up the mountain, and 3-4 hours later, I find a place that I could launch my paraglider from. And by then the wind had died down and everything was good. And I launched and flew across the river, gave it the finger on the way over, and then landed. But I was just like, looking back on that, I was like, man, what an idiot. I just really should not have even tried.
Yeah, because once you go down in it, you've got a couple of seconds in the shock of the water that hits you and the coldness. And you start stiffening up, and you got weight on your back and maybe one of your arms, because, they'll spin that pack on your arm. And most of the time, you need to have only one strap on.
So it's just hanging over your shoulder.
Just one strap on, and you can get rid of it, but it will bite you if it twists. If you go to roll it and it twists right around your arm just like that.
How do you know this?
Well, experience.
So this has happened to you?
Yeah. And I've been so fortunate to be in a place to where it's like I've gone down and I've hit the water and rolled, and then hit a bank, hit a what they call, a little island, and then be able to straggle out. But I've noticed that and have my pack still with me. And I tried to get rid of it whenever I went down, and I couldn't get rid of it, even with one strap on. And so it's just a bad deal.
Yeah, and if you are alone and you're in the middle of nowhere, now you've lost your pack.
Right, and you lose your pack, and you lose it, and you're soaking wet, and you're freezing, and if it's a cold day, there's only one way to survive, and that's start walking. Because you can't build a fire, you can't do anything, and you're soaking wet. And a horse dumped me off in a beaver dam. And it was one of those days, it was raining, it was cold, it was September, and I got out of the pond, and I was like, and none of everything I had was soaking wet. So I had to just walk.
And he ran, the horse ran?
No, he was there. I caught him.
Good.
And I tried to get up next to the horse, like you say, and do the hug. He wouldn't let me. He was just like, you're wet. And so I couldn't get no heat out of the horse. And so I just led the horse and walked nonstop. And the first, half my legs were just like pegs, walking on pegs, but you can't stop. You have to do it. And if you're not young and tough, I don't know that I could do it right now.
Let's get back. We've kind of gotten all over the place here, and I appreciate that. You mentioned before on the last podcast that, they would take you out and go land somewhere and you follow them in. Did you guys have radios?
No.
Did you guys have some signal system or something? If they were like, hey, it's too bad to land, but we're going to land, you shouldn't, would they just stop in the middle of the runway or something?
No, basically, if they were on the ground, they would just wave you off.
They would go
just go home. And so that was the deal. If Dad was making a run on something, or Wendy, and they made a couple runs on the runway and they looked at it and they knew they could land on it, but we couldn't, then basically you got the wing wag. And they would just wag their wings back and forth like this. And that was the deal for you to just go away. And
go away.
Just go away. And Dad didn't like electrical in the airplanes, because in the old days, electrical weighed 100 pounds.
Yeah.
The battery and the starter and generator and all that stuff. So nobody had any electrical in none of their airplanes. And so everything that was done was either hand signals or that. And I don't know if I told you on the last one, was that if we were on the ground and we were hunting, then Dad would just talk to us out of the airplane. And
no, how'd just come by and yell?
He'd come by, he'd open the little side window on the side, and he would just fly right alongside. He would carry a lot of speed, and then he would just kill the throttle. And then he would just tell you what he wanted. Like, go, it would be real quick. It was like, get your ass home, or, start walking to the cabin, or go back upstream, or go to the other strip. Or there's a storm coming in, dig in, get a fire going, or some kind of a quick thing that he would tell you to do. And then, because you knew he was going home, he wasn't going to come back and get you, and so I'll be back tomorrow. But it actually worked.
Yeah. Because
we knew whenever he, was coming down on us and everything. So everybody was like, listen for the instruction. And,
man.
And then that's another thing too, is when you have no radios and you're flying, because we started getting more and more planes. And so there was Dad, and there was Wendy, and then me, and then Cole, and then Lynn. And so it was quite a fleet whenever we would go somewhere to do something.
Are you the oldest?
What's that?
What's the age? Are you the oldest?
No, Terry is actually the oldest. And so, but Lynn, Lynn, Cole, and me. Yeah, I'm the youngest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was the baby. And so what you did was that Dad was the leader, and it had to be that way because he had no communications. And of course, all the airplanes were painted black and white. And so they just blended into everything. And so you had to stay, and formation was so important in order to keep from running into each other and to be able to navigate. And so you never flew behind. Now, the one thing that you would get an ass chewing from Dad was if you ever got behind him, he would.
So he couldn't see you that way.
He couldn't see you that way. And you can fly into another airplane. And there was some people killed doing that. And because you can come up behind them, and it's just not a good thing. So you had to be offset like this. Everybody was offset of each other. So in other words, whenever you swung, and you can't be above the wing, you kind of be up here. And so everybody could see everybody. And so it went like Dad. And then if Wendy was there, so Wendy was behind Dad on his deal. And then Len would be on this side, and then Cole, and then me. Like this.
So you guys are like a gang of bikers going out.
Yeah.
But like, why do you all need to be flying are you going to pick up a bunch of hunters? Or why are you in a gang like this? Like, what's the purpose of this mission that you're going to?
Yeah. And so in other words, they would be 3 or 4 camps. And so it's like, okay, there's some moose down here, and that we need, either the meat was packed out or they're on the strips. And so then, like, me and Cole would stop and get meat, and Dad and them would maybe go and pick up some clients or be taking some clients in. And so it's early morning, and so everybody is flying early morning because of the wind.
So you guys are going out, and maybe like there's a camp, but there's camps, but they're in a line kind of.
Right.
And you're going out, and how do you know which person's landing at the first camp? Do you decide that at the beginning?
We decide that for before you go, and you have to stick with that without a radio.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you're going to go to Bond Creek and you're going to pick up some people there. And it's like, okay. And so most of the time when you all took off, then you would branch off and go do what you needed to do. And then you had the thing of when everybody was coming back in. And so you had to really pay attention.
Because you could be right next
You
to
could
someone.
all be coming back at the same time. And so you always came in fairly high. Dad flew really low. Wendy flew really low. And so we would all fly fairly high in order to stay.
So you had different altitudes.
And different altitudes so we could watch for them coming in. And then night came. And so when we would be flying back in at night and everything, and this is totally against all rules, but everybody carried a big lighter. And so it's amazing. You can see that big lighter, and you can even do a flashlight, but a flashlight glares real bad. But if you strike a big lighter inside the cabin, and if you're in formation, you can see the flash of that. And I just don't want to have a gas leak.
You guys, you are so. Oh man,
I love everything about your life story and the way you guys were raised and everything, and the big lighter or all the stuff like that is just, I just love it. I love it so much. It's the absolute reason why I started doing this podcast. It's like, you did what? You had a lighter.
Yeah, crazy stuff that you did, you know, and it's just part of, trying not to hit each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then simple because, it's not like we were poor starving people, but we didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you had to we made our living in 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to live through the winter. And so you had to trap and you had to do this and do that. And why we did that, I have no idea. We could have went and got a job, but we didn't. We chose not to.
Well, your parents chose not to, and
Right.
that's how you were raised, and that's what you're comfortable. That's how you're comfortable.
And
You're doing a similar thing, which is you're building planes now.
Yeah. It's the same thing. My whole family's in the hangar with us building airplanes. And we have just done that. And I don't know, a lot of people say that we were a cult, you know what I mean? And things like that, you know what I mean? And so it was
the Ellis cult.
the Ellis cult, you know what I mean?
Down there, you're like a cult. You're down there. You got your property. You got guns. You got.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually want to bring that up. That's a good segue to the question I was hoping you would be willing to talk about. When we had Art on here, Art Werbelow, I know there was some tension between you guys, and I don't know if you've talked to Art. Did he ever call you or anything?
No, I haven't talked to Art in years. Yeah.
Yeah, but he, he told me about this meeting that you guys had. It was like a meeting of the mafia or something, where you guys were like divvying up territory and stuff. And he, I think that there was a lot of animosity there, but he also expressed a lot of respect for you guys. But you were telling me some crazy. Would you mind talking about this story where your dad's chasing a guy down or something? And it was Art, wasn't it? I mean, we can cut this out if you don't want.
I know. I don't know where. Yeah, things like that is that was our world, and that's how we made our living, and that's how we did things and everything like that. And you get real attached to it, and it becomes dangerous because somebody else comes in and starts using the same stuff, and then there kind of becomes a conflict.
Oh, of course. Well, yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense.
Right.
You don't have to defend yourself in that.
Right. And then it's like, well, maybe they don't know. And so then you have a meeting, and then it's just like, no, we have the right to do that and we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we have a right to do it and we're going to do it. And then there you go. There it starts.
Well, that's the problem with those kind of businesses. This is one of those instances where you can't have an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Because there's literally only a certain amount of real estate.
Yeah. It's hard when it comes down to it because it is when it's competitive and you have to get out there and do it. And then what happens?
And you guys were there first, right?
Well, that's the argument.
Right.
Is like, and actually we were the people that were there every year and everything like that. And those people were around for a really long time, and their father and stuff like that. So they were in and out, but we were constant.
The other difference between you guys was that you guys were hunting.
Yeah.
They were doing air taxi.
Right.
And so suddenly they've got a leg up as far as volume goes.
Right.
Because they can do one group a day.
Right.
Whereas you're stuck to doing it in 3 or whatever, 4 or 5 days or whatever it is.
Right. And so you can't compete.
Yeah.
And that's actually why I got my air taxi. So I could compete, because we couldn't do it under the guiding, because you can't make enough money in that short of time and take enough hunters. And the thing that suffers, which we know today, is the game. And so whenever you get into these.
Yeah. And then the competition, then it's like, well, yeah, you're not only competing for real estate and strips and territory, you're competing for who's going to get the game first, because there's only a certain amount.
Right. And then it comes to, well, if I don't do it, they're going to do it.
Oh, and that's a bad situation. That's bad news for the game.
It's bad news all the way. And it's like, okay, we would hunt our camps every 3 years. And a few residents would come in and hunt and stuff. But when it went commercial, we couldn't do that anymore. And so we had to hunt our camps every year, and we had to have people in there every year. And work the camp and try to make enough money to sustain everything. And so it gets real complicated, and it gets real ugly. And Dad was pretty volatile and stuff like that and everything, but not brutal as far as like to shoot somebody or something like that, because he was like, look, this is the way it works. You know what I mean? You will go to prison, and so you can't hurt people. You know what I mean?
You just got to make them scared.
You got to scare them. It's terrible. Yeah. I don't even know if we should be talking on this subject or not.
We can go with this.
Yeah.
So you have a list there of other people that you...
Yeah. A story that, and I don't know how many of these stories, Bud Conkle, super float plane pilot. And the way you found out about it was you went and landed in some of his lakes that he operated out of. Okay. And you found out real quick.
Found out that he was pretty good.
He was pretty good at what he did, yeah. And just to touch on that a little bit, and the main story is different, but he used the method of pulling the airplane up on the beach and then tying it off. And then he had one of his hands, and they had a slip knot on the tail. And then he would get in it and run it wide open and get it going, the engine at full throttle and everything like that. And then the guy would pull the knot on it, and he could jump off and get off the water a little bit better with that. And so that's how short these lakes were.
What an incredible thing to be operating on that kind of a margin that you need to do that.
Yeah. And you have to do it every time, and you have to work at it every time. And you have to monitor your gas, and you have to, all the things that they did. And, but Bud actually helped me. We were talking about turbulence and different things one day, and he was like, oh yeah, he goes, you do a lot of flying up on the upper Jacksina and up there. And he, in the 1950s and probably in the 40s, he did a lot of flying up in there. And he told me, he goes, every once in a while, he goes, there's a storm that comes off of Jarvis and down through that way. And he goes, it's a really bad deal. And he goes, it has severe downdrafts in it. And I was thinking, like bumps like this. And he goes, no, these are really bad. And he told me where it was. He goes, it's between Tumble Creek and the fork of the Jacksina. And he goes, right in there. And he goes, I wrote it down a couple of times. And he goes, the one time, he goes, I was pretty high. I was headed up to the high country. I was about 6,000 feet. And he goes, I started to experience turbulence, more turbulence. And he said that all of a sudden, I started a downdraft and going down. And he goes, it was really going down. And so he kind of lined up on the river, and he said it went all the way. He couldn't get it to stop. And he said that he had remembered that it doesn't go all the way to the ground. Most downdrafts will bottom out. And he says, you have to be careful. You don't want to bottom out too hard on something like that. Some of these old guys are just cool, calm. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you're riding this meteor headed for the earth. You know what I mean? And he's like, so he wanted to make sure the airplane was the right speed. So when it bottomed out, it wouldn't break anything. And he goes, for a little bit, I was kind of concerned because he said the ground was coming up pretty darn fast. But he said it didn't go all the way to the ground. He goes, I bottomed out and just flew right straight out of it. And he said, I went on back home, and he said, waited till another day. And
so when do you say the right speed so that when you bottom out, you don't break anything? Does that mean slower? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
And
within the green arc or whatever?
Right. Within the range, you don't want to try and dive your way out of it or accelerate or do anything like that. And so I had the experience of flying into that. I was in my my PA-12 And I guess you could say my Charlie Center PA-12 with all the mods
Mm-hmm.
on it. I kind of thought I could handle turbulence and stuff because I had the real deal. And I was going the exact same place. I was at 6,000 feet and I was headed for the headwaters of Tumble Creek, and I started getting turbulence and started getting pretty bad. And then I hit one that slammed me into my seatbelt and actually hurt my shoulders when it slammed me into the harness. I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. So I made my turn, and I turned, and I started back to the river. And when I got over the Jacksina River, it bailed on me and literally just fell out of the sky. And all the stuff in the back of my seat came out over my head, hit the skylight, all the dirt, everything off the floor, all the gear I had inside pasted against the skylight. And I mean, I was going down just like a meteor, like the airplane was not flying at all. And
was it flying? I mean, did you have aileron control?
I could keep it level.
Huh.
I had aileron control. But as far as trying to pitch it, it would just every time, and I was full throttle. I just went full throttle. But when I would pull back on the stick, airspeed would just go away.
Mm.
And so I knew if I stalled it, I would be in worse trouble. And so I just kept it at about 60, and then I remembered Bud's story. And so I was terrified, to tell you the honest truth.
Mm.
But then when I remembered what he told me, I go, well, should be hope. I should make it. But I rode that thing all the way to the river. And when it got within probably 100, 200 feet of the river, it just boom, and just flew right straight out of it. And
was that was there
was a pretty
G's
good
involved in that?
It was a pretty good jolt. Not horrible, but enough to where you knew you bottomed out on it. And I guess the ground, the air cushion under the ground or whatever it was, would do that.
Yeah.
And I learned.
Well, I mean, the air can't be going through the ground.
Right.
So we know, but my always thought was the inertia of your downward movement of this mass that is your plane, that you would, you need some time for those wings to do their job right?
Yeah. And it thumped me pretty good and everything, but I was full throttle. So there is a possibility that I was no lift, but I was actually maybe going forward. Mm. And so when I ran out of it, the wings started flying again and took over with his deal. But I learned from that when you fly up there on that, and it's only certain days, it's that Pineapple Express is what it is.
What is that Pineapple Express?
That's the one that comes out of Hawaii, and that's what we call it and everything. And so there's an arm, and now you can see it. You can pull up your little Wendy app, and you're like, okay, there's the Pineapple Express, and it's hitting right on the backside of Jarvis, and
Jarvis is a mountain.
Yeah, it's right next to, you got Mount Sanford and Wrangell and Drum and Blackburn, and then Jarvis is kind of set back in the center there. And so if you see that, and it's cold at the house, and it's warm up there, then that thing is screaming over the top of that at no telling 100 miles an hour probably, and it's hot. And then it dives down into that cold air at the house, and that is just terrible. And once you get up there and you cross the Jacksina River and you get into Tumble Creek, you can feel it. And as soon as it's a thump that you need to just get out of there, And so you learn that after a while, and you're just like, and now we have technology, so we can look up stuff, and then you fly up there and you feel it, and then you run home real quick.
Right, but now you can kind of see ahead of going that.
Right.
Whereas before you just kind of look up and go,
it'd be fine. Yeah, and you got to go look. And now with the stuff that we have, you can actually research it pretty good. And that Wendy app it's actually really pretty good.
Yeah,
in the mountains and stuff. It gives you a pretty darn good.
And it's only going to get better.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
That was actually one of my questions, because you don't know how many times I've turned up a little valley or something, and oh man, I really want to get turned around, and you're trying to turn around, your brain's like doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and then I always hear your voice, because in the first podcast you said, oh man, it's like a cement mixer in here. And I said, you don't know how many times I've heard you say that in my head, cement mixer. It's like, it's like a cement mixer in here. You get out of here. And I was going to ask you today what it means to be a cement mixer. Being a cement mixer, I think you just answered.
Yeah, I answered, It's when everything goes to pot. Yeah, and it's just that boom, 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 boom. You can't get away from it. So every time the the blades come over, it just hits you and hits you and hits you. You know, I mean,
I mean the blades.
like in a cement mixer.
Oh yeah,
You
right.
see
The
what I
blades,
mean?
okay.
And so
sorry,
the wind is like the cement mixer. It won't leave you alone. It just keeps getting you and slapping you and slapping you and slapping. You can't get away from it. And so you just have to run for it. And
So
and that's what.
do you have thoughts about flying over growths? I mean, we both know that that's really common up here, but I mean that's
Flying overweight.
overgrowth
Oh, yeah.
and turbulence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you talk about those two combined together?
Yeah.
Those,
It's bad. But flying over growths and everything, the airplanes are designed to withstand a lot.
yeah.
And so you have a margin that is pretty high to start with. And a lot
Were
of
you heavy that day in the story that you told?
I was pretty heavy, yeah, because I had a full camp with me. I was not like over gross, probably right at gross, maybe 100 pounds over, 200.
No, you weren't over gross.
No, not at all. But no, right at gross weight with it.
So you were heavy that day.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not where you want to be, right? Am I wrong with that? Because you're talking about structural integrity of the airplane.
Right. And that's the problem with being over gross weight with a lot of these airplanes and everything, and you get in severe turbulence with them, is you can't get out of the turbulence, and you're trying to slow the airplane down, and it's so heavy that you can't really slow it down because then it becomes dangerous. And so your angle of bank and all that stuff starts flying at you, because it's rolling you up on your side, and you got stuff sort of secured in there, but it's if it comes off the floor and then it slams back down again, and that it gets
you do have everything working against you.
You have everything working against you. And then there's those bumps that you hit that you wonder how the airplane stays together, that it just racks, you know what I mean, and slams you into the seat belts or into the side of the thing. And that's one thing that I have had. I've almost been knocked out quite a few times. And, everything is fine and you're kind of doing everything. And then all of a sudden this side of the airplane just hits you in the side of the head. It's so fast and it just whack, and you're just like, whoa, you know what I mean? And you're trying to wake up and trying to get going on it. And so it's just like, egads, and then you're just like, holy mackerel.
So do you wear a helmet?
No, I've got several helmets,
You don't like them?
I haven't found one yet that I ever liked, but yeah, it's really difficult to be real. Most Super Cubs are overloaded when you taxi out with them most of the time. I mean, the
working ones.
The working ones are loaded heavy all the time, when you're working airplanes. And so you just have to keep in thought that you're flying an airplane that's at gross weight, and that your turns, your stall, everything is different. And that's where a lot of this short field landings and hot rod stuff and everything like that goes out the window when you start working. You know what I mean? There's a whole different line of thinking and working an airplane that's loaded all the time. You're loaded when you come in, you're loaded when you leave, you're just loaded all the time. And and so you've got to fly it according to its load. And you can't just run the numbers and say, okay, I'm going to learn the numbers and run the numbers, and this is the way it flies and everything, because the wind and the temperature and the dew points and all the other stuff that runs with you. And so you're coming in to land or you're taking off and you got a really heavy load. Then you need to know how it's going to respond.
Yeah. That is a really interesting thing to me, guys like you. That's just a mystery to me, I guess, is like, how do you know? You're about to take off and you've just thrown all this moose meat and you got a client or whatever. And it's like, how do you know that it's going to take off at the end of the runway?
Yeah. And that's
experience, right? Is there
anything
else that
it's basically experience. And then a lot of the places we use them all the time. And so whenever you land in there and you get out of the airplane and you feel the wind and you feel the temperature and then just right off the bat whether you're going to be able to take a load out of there or not. And, the key thing is it's cool and you have a headwind. So a lot of the strips when you're hauling moose meat and stuff, you always go in with a tailwind.
Yeah.
You want to go.
You mean the uphill?
Right. The uphills, one-way ones, the ones, most all of them are. Any of the ones in the drainages or anything, are all pretty much one ways. And so you want to go in with a tailwind. And so you'll wait until evening, to haul moose meat, And so then you got to land in the dang thing with an empty airplane with a 5 or 10 knot tailwind, And so you got to.
What's the biggest tailwind you've ever landed with?
Yeah, probably 15, maybe 20. Take off the same way, up to 15 or 20 mile an hour tailwind. And
wow, that surprises me.
But the downwind thing is really what's the fancy word for it?
Controversial?
Yeah.
Well, I love it. Let's talk about it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Tell me.
A lot of the places that we operated in and out of, a lot of times you don't have a choice. You know what I mean? If you land in there and all of a sudden the wind starts coming up, and of course you feel it right away, and you're like, and then you're like, okay, let's get the plane loaded. I got to get out of here. And I've had the times when it's like the person wasn't ready, and it's like I just have to go because I know what's coming. You know what I mean? Because you've been there long enough to kind of know. And so you just leave and you come back later. But sometimes you're right in the middle and you're loading, you got everything in. The guy's just clicking his seatbelt, and all of a sudden it's like you feel it, and it's just strong. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I know what you mean.
And so you're like, okay. And so then what you have to do is you have to figure the length of your runway and acceleration and all this stuff, which is you're just guessing. But so what you have to do is start your takeoff run. Okay, so if the wind is blowing, let's say 10 miles an hour, well, you have to be 10 mile an hour faster than the wind in order to the deal. And it's not a stable wind and everything. And so I guess you would think about it. And the mistake a lot of people make is when they take off with a tailwind is they'll start to climb. And you have to have a non-obstacle area in front of you because you can't climb safely with a tailwind unless you got a turbine or something or 300 horse engine.
Unless you have more margin than you need.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Unless you have it. So what you have to do is travel with the wind. And so you run down the runway, you get the tail up on the plane, and you run it all the way to the end as fast as you possibly can. And then you break it off the ground, and you have to keep it absolutely flat and just keep doing this and run with the wind and kind of ride the wind along down the creek with it. And if you can see something out ahead, any kind of a roll like this, because the wind's behind you, it will pick you up.
Yeah, get lift off that.
You'll get lift off that. So you're looking for any kind of a bump or anything if it's not working out for you very well. And so you'll work your way through that way. And as soon as you accelerate past the speed of the winds, past the deal, you're good to go. And you can get it up. And it's not a good idea to do it, but it can be done, but you can't climb out of it. And that's a mistake that's made.
That kind of makes sense to me. I would classify that one in the section of let the professionals do it.
But and I've had problems over the years with that one. And
what do you mean problems? With the idea or the?
Well, no, just a crash.
Okay, got it.
I guess to make it short.
Like, what do you mean?
I had a moose hunter that was a problem hunter.
And he was like
just
difficult client.
Angry at the world, angry at everybody. And he was a fairly large person in the 300-pound class. And so I put him in an area to where I thought he could get a moose, where he didn't have to walk very far and he had a good viewpoint and everything, but the strip was bad and it was short and it was sort of a one-way type strip. And so then he decided to quit hunting after several days and stuff like that, and he wanted to come back out. And it was the same thing. One thing leads to another. It's a busy day. Things are wrong, and so it's like, okay, I want to get in there when the wind is right and stuff like that. And so something happened, and I couldn't get going, and all this. And so when I got there, the sun was just coming up, the temperature was just changing, and I had a headwind, and it was a breeze. It was like 3-4 miles an hour.
Right.
But I was like, okay, I'm set. I got a headwind. I'm good to go. And of course, it's like, okay, well, where's my toothbrush and where's my case for it? And where's it? A lot of the air carriers would know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's like, okay, we need to go. We need to go. And then I put him in the airplane and everything. And instead of thinking about it or anything, I was just like, I got to go. And so I taxied up to the end of the runway, and it's one of those things, halfway down the runway, it didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right.
And you're going downhill?
No, it's flat.
It's flat.
It's
Okay.
just flat. And there was kind of a way out this way, and I was like, through the trees. It was heavy spruce in that area. And I was halfway down the runway, and it was like, this not quite right. You know what I mean? I'm not going fast enough. I'm not accelerating. Well, when I started my takeoff run, the temperature changed and the wind changed at that same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a tailwind, and I got off the runway right at the end. I lifted it in the air, and I started climbing. I could feel it. I was like, it changed because it just,
Yeah.
And so I nosed it over, and I tried to run with it, and I was running pretty good with it like that. And then I looked up ahead, and it was like, there's a lot of trees coming up. And I thought I could get enough speed. And so I tried it one more time just to kind of pull it up like this. And it just came up, and then it started getting really bad. And I was like, oh,
It's mushing out.
it's over. So I just nosed it over and pulled the throttle back, and we rode it in, and it's just stupid. And I was very fortunate. It's just like the ones they talk about and everything. You're supposed to hit 2 trees with the wings, when you're coming in. And I hit
Go between two, you mean?
Go between 2 trees. Well, I didn't really have anywhere to go. I was just going down, I just
kind of pointed right
Well,
there.
I hit 2 trees, and big trees. They were first trees like this big around, but I hit them pretty high up on the tops. And I know people probably think this is BS, but it really isn't. I hit those 2 trees, and it uprooted those trees at the bottom because up there's so much permafrost, and the tree roots are setting on it. I uprooted both those trees, and I rode both those trees down and landed in a huge pile of brush. Just boom. And I mean, it was like no tension on the seat belts, no nothing. I was just like, and we stopped, and I shut the motor off, and the prop didn't hit. There's no damage to the gear. There's no damage to the fuselage. The only 2 dents in the wings was where those trees hit, and they went all the way into the spars and did not bend the spars, flattened the leading edges
What?
on it.
Yeah, so like up till that point, I was like, "Oh, this is totally believable."
Yeah, now there's no way to believe it.
Wow.
It was like, and so I guess the aliens reached out and got a hold of me,
Yeah.
But I think, and also I was going so slow. Because my airplane flies.
You were basically at a stall.
I was at a full stall, so it would have been under 40 miles an hour, right around that. And then these trees were ripped out, and it did damage to the leading edges and I had to pull the wings. I flew it home, but
How did you get it out of there?
Because this was in newer times, and so I had to call the NTSB. And I had to talk to those guys, and then I got a ferry permit for it, and then I went up, and all I did was I took leading edge skin and beat it all back out, and then just put chunks of leading edge skin right over top of it, and then 100-mile-an-hour taped it.
So would you pull it through the brush and stuff?
Oh yeah, it was a big chainsaw deal, and so then I had to contact the Park Service in order to get that done. And so nothing real big, no more than 3 inches. That's illegal.
No more than 3 inches
It's on the tree.
You're like, I'm gonna measure with my hand.
Yeah.
that one's 3 inches.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was a real learning experience, but it was a blessing not to just completely total an airplane or hurt somebody. You get in a hurry, and you get to pushing, and you push weather, and you push everything. You can fly really good, but you can't beat weather.
That I think is a great example of, I don't know what word to use, respectfully, carelessness coupled with experience.
Yeah.
Like you did everything once you left the ground perfectly, right? I mean, like you could have stalled it
right
while you were 50 feet in the air,
right,
and nosed in,
right, or made a really steep turn,
or tried to turn and
just
panic.
drove
But you were just like, I'm going to accept the fate,
right,
and did it perfectly.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, you have to, because I knew if I turned it, it'd get away from me.
And that's where you were like channeling Wendy,
right?
Once you left the ground.
Yeah, once I left the ground, I was remembering Wendy. Yeah, just stay calm and just ride it in.
It's amazing. That's a great story. Can you tell me some stories about your mom? We didn't talk enough about that in the last one.
Mom, her dad was actually murdered and that he was run over by a car, and
Purposely?
purposely he was hit by a car and drugged 2 miles, and so they meant to get him, and so I don't know the story, but anyway, he was, that's where that happened. So that kind of shattered them and moved them around, and then Dad and Mom actually went to school together in kindergarten, so they grew up together. And so when they were old enough, they got married, and they were 14. And,
Wow.
But he had this dream to go to Alaska and or Australia. I don't know if I told you that on the last one or not. And
I think you did.
yeah, and he flipped a coin, head or tails, which way he was going to go. And then they decided, heads was Alaska, I guess. And
Do you remember what year they showed up here?
it would have been, I think it was 49.
Okay.
It wasn't a state then.
Yeah.
And so maybe even a little before that.
Did I hear something about them living on a beach down on the Kenai
Right.
Peninsula or something?
Yeah, they lived in Clam Gulch. He didn't care for it down there. And so he kept trying to find a place to go to move to. And he took jobs and worked here and there. And then he got started working at Merrill Field for a guy by the name they called him Old Man McEnroy. And he was had a pacer. And so they used the pacer to sell moose. And for $200, you could have a moose delivered to your door. And so he would
Explain that.
Well, he would fly across the inlet over here and shoot a moose, and then bring it back over here and then deliver it to your house.
Was that like he's just doing it and selling the moose, or was it like a proxy hunt, or was it not a hunt?
Well, yeah, there was it wasn't a state, and so there wasn't really any laws that they knew of.
The way that they were like, hey,
Yeah, and so so they just did it,
and so they would just sell. It's like selling meat. It's like,
Right.
Yeah, you're just going harvesting and selling it.
Right. It was just
Wow.
that, and maybe they had some kind of deal. They were paying for the airplane flight, or I don't know how it was, but that's how he kind of started in the hunting business, and then he just slowly ran out. And the long story short was that he finally got enough money, and he got a job working at Merrill Field on airplanes because he wanted to know how to work on airplanes, and that he built a house over on O'Malley, and it burned down.
Mm-hmm.
And so that launched them to Nebezna because he had been to Nebezna and he liked it out there, and he wanted to start hunting out there.
What did he go? Had he just gone there randomly, or someone?
Yeah, he went all over the state hunting and looking, and he was going to go on the peninsula, but he didn't like the ocean. He almost drowned down there a couple times. His saying was that he was going to put a paddle on his shoulder and walk inland until someone asked him what it was, and then that's where he was going to stay.
That's a funny one. Oh my God.
And so that's how he ended up at Nebezna. And so he built that. But when he moved Mom there to Nebezna, it was just for hunting. But when she got to Nebezna, that was it. She was like, I'm not leaving here.
Yeah.
And so she was just like, we just got to plan for this and get our groceries in here and get our,
She just like it. So what was she like as a mom?
Mom was the kindest person in the world until you made her mad. And
how did you make her? How would you make her mad?
Oh, well, the
formula?
main thing that made her the worst was us fighting among ourselves.
Okay.
And she had rules, which there were really good rules, is you didn't make noise unless you were hurt. So in other words, back then we had a lot more bears. We had a lot more animals around and stuff, and they would come into the yard and stuff like that. And so if we were out playing in the yard, we had barriers, where we couldn't go, go too far.
Barriers like real barriers, or just
no,
like
just
rules?
like she was just like, okay, you can't go past that rock, because there was a beating on the other side of the rock. You know what I mean? And so
a beating or a mauling,
right, whichever one came first. Yeah. And so we would. But yeah, we weren't allowed to scream or holler out in the yard and goof off. You know what I mean? We did a little bit of it, but because that was her rules. But as far as being a mom, she was super. She cooked 3 meals a day for us most all the time. And maybe it might not have been much, but it was meals that she cooked for us, and, did all of our laundry and stuff. Everything was done by hand pretty much. Then in the wintertime, of course, we trapped all winter.
What age did you start going with her on her trap lines?
Well, she took us with us when we were little bitty because she couldn't leave them at the house.
So she would have you on her back or something?
Right, on the back or sled. And she usually pulled a sled.
How far was she walking? Dogs?
Walked. And
So how far was she walking? How far was she walking?
well, it was 2 miles each direction. She had 3 trampolines. And
So she'd go out 2 miles and back, 2
Yeah.
miles and back.
yeah. And usually would catch somewhere 18 to 20 lynx a year. And not too many wolves and stuff like that. A wolverine once in a while, you know.
So she's pulling a sled with you guys, 3 of you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the age difference between you and Lane?
Yeah, there's about 3 years, 2 years difference between us.
So
And
5.
so Len was probably old enough he could walk most of the time, and Cole would walk a little bit, and then most of the time I rode on the sled.
Do you have any stories from the trapping when she was carrying you guys on the sled and stuff? Do you have any mishaps ever happened?
Mom was on it pretty good. Everything was like, okay, you know, if I was on the sled and Cole and them was walking, and then we got to a place to where there was an animal in the trap, then we pull back, and then, okay, now you guys sit in the sled and you stay right there, you know, and it's ironclad. It's like, you don't move. And then she would go up and she would kill the animal, you know what I mean? And then it was like, okay, then we could come up. And so there was rules, you know, that she used to make sure that we didn't get in a situation between her and the gun and running around, and maybe the animal broke loose and grabbed one of us or something like that, you know. And but no, I don't really remember a whole lot of anything that really went haywire, because and she was very easygoing, you know what I mean. And
She was calm. She had that
calm. She had the calm,
wow.
the calm thing. But over the years, I mean, when people would push her, including Dad and everything like that, Mom could fist fight.
Oh.
And when she was younger, you know, she was she did quite a bit of drag racing with the old cars and stuff in Texas before they left, when they were just teenagers. And she loved to drive, and Mom could really drive, because she drove the Nebezna Road all the time. And it washed out. It was washed out back in those days. And so we had to build road as we went. And so we had this old Ford flatbed that she drove. And so we would roll rocks and move stuff, and then she would drive it through the creeks and stuff, you know. And but yeah, I never really understood who Mom was until later on in years. And it's like, Mom was Iron Lady.
Yep. How much did she weigh, do you think? How big?
Mom weighed 170 pounds.
So she was taller.
She was tall.
How did your mom keep you guys within these boundaries, or to stay in the sled? I mean, would she beat you?
You know, I think there is a power that we don't know about. When she told us, don't do it, it was like a power force. And I don't know, we wouldn't do it. And did it come from when we were babies and everything? We don't have no scars on us from when we were babies. You know what I mean?
If you're going to beat them, you got to beat them early enough that they won't remember it when they get older.
When they get older and stuff like that. But
no,
but it is, I think it's the environment, and of course they were the 1940s people, and they're very serious when it comes to, you have to obey rules. And Dad was the same way. And it's just,
were they raised during the Depression?
Right.
I guess so, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You said environment, and I feel like that's the answer to me. Like, you were in a dangerous environment.
Yeah.
It makes sense that humanity, you're smart enough, your brain is made to survive, that you would be like,
right,
there's bears in the yard, I'm going to listen to Mom.
Right.
Yeah. Who else do you have on that list? You were saying there's some other people. Cleo. What about Cleo?
Cleo McMahon. Yeah.
Yeah.
One time Dad told me that Cleo needed his float plane annual, and then go get it and take it over to our float plane base and do an annual on it. And so I had Jenny drop me off over there, and Cleo took me down to his plane and said, here it is. And we took the ropes loose. And then I was looking at their home lake where they land, and I was like, wow, is there more water around here?
Is there like a curve go around?
There's like a
corner or
something. And so I asked him, I was like, well, how do you get out of here? You know, I try not to be dumb, you know what I mean, and look bad, you know. And so you're just like, well, And he was like, oh, just taxi up by the culvert there and just take off right out through that way. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, you know what I mean? But those people were float plane people.
So what did he know that you didn't know at that point that made him go, yeah, this is no big deal?
I had not been operating a float plane out of really short lakes.
Mm.
Everything that I was doing was fairly large lakes, and there's no brainer. There's no work involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in other words, when you start working short lakes, then it's the same thing as everything else. You have to learn, okay, I'm going to be on the step here, I'm going to be here and here, and I'm going to be off. You know what I mean? And then your loads and your gas and all that, it's that same thing.
Yeah.
That you have to figure it all out to do it. And that's what they do, you know what I mean? And so...
And he would land there in the dark in that little lake, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I'm sure he would, yeah. And and there's and the same thing with a little lake like that. It's like, they teach you the Mira water landings, you know what I mean? Where you set your airplane up and come in and just fly. Well, you can't do that on a little tiny lake. You have to paste it on the end, and so you have to watch the shoreline when you do that one. But, and so there's another,
I mean, you can land like in like a quarter of the, I'm not a float guy, so I don't know about this, but you can land a lot shorter on floats than you can take off pretty much always, right? Is that?
Yeah, pretty much. So if you ride the toes of the floats, you can get in really short with a float plane. You know what I mean? If you're at full stall and touch the water and, get it on the water and then you can bury the heels and get it slowed down. Or you go the other direction, which is a little bit trickier, and that's just you ride on the toes of the floats, and that will really slow you down. But you have to be careful that you don't stub a toe on the floats. It's a dangerous business.
That does seem kind of crazy.
It's only an emergency situation.
Speaking of floats, let's talk about landing on water with wheels.
With wheels,
do water assist landings.
Yeah. No.
You just don't like it? Do you ever water ski?
No. I've been around a lot of people that does it and stuff like that. And like I say, I don't swim. So it's not my...
That's a logical thing that you're talking about.
Yeah. And if you lose an engine in the middle of one of these lakes, I don't know how you would survive it, because you don't have life jackets on and you don't have, the airplane's going to sink almost immediately. It's just scary to me.
How many engine failures have you had? I mean, does that have an effect on your way you make decisions?
Yeah.
Have you had a lot of engine failures?
I've had 3 complete engine failures, and I've had about 4 partials. And it really does do something to you after a while. The first engine failure I had in the 185 was on takeoff, and I was about 100 feet in the air, and I wasn't going fast. I was climbing at 100 miles an hour, according to the airspeed, and the engine quit on it, just like boom, just like that.
Like the prop stopped instantly?
Yeah,
kind of
prop stopped everything. I mean, she just shut down, and I wasn't going fast enough that deal to nose it over hardly. And so I ended up just pasting the steering against the column, trying to get the nose to come down on it, because it wouldn't. It was doing this, coming down. And
crazy. And
it finally broke over, probably, I don't know, a couple 100 feet from the ground. And it broke over like that, and there was a little pond off to this one side, and I was able just to turn it a little bit. And I hit on that pond, slid across the pond, and went up on the bank on the other side. And so after some of that stuff, you're just like, whew, you know what I mean? It starts working on you after a while, And
what about the other ones?
I had one in the Hulk, and it was totally my fault. I had a complete engine failure on it, and it's something, and it's mechanical. And what it was hauling a lot of stuff. I was down out of Cordova and hauling off the beaches and stuff and back and forth, and it's pouring down rain, and you're in rain suit. And I had been hanging my headset, on the crossbar. And of course, everything off the headset was hanging down, and the key, the mag switch key, was underneath the cords and stuff. And I was just too big of a hurry, and I was hauling and coming and going and everything like that. And what had happened was the ground wire came off of the mags. I only had one wire on the mags for ground wire, which you should have 2. So at one time I landed, and I turned the airplane off and did all this stuff. And then I loaded everything back on. I got in, I hit the starter button, it started. Well, the key was off. Didn't use a checklist. You know what I mean? And so I turned around and took off, and it was a pretty short strip, and took off and started climbing out, and the engine quit on it. Well, the wire that had came off came back over and grounded because the key was off. If I would have just looked down and turned the key on, well, then I would have been fine, but I was too busy then. And so I went down, and there was a big cut bank. It was about 12 feet high. And I hit the top of that cut bank. I thought I could make it into the river, but I just rolled my wheels across it, just barely, just boom, like that. And that was just enough to stall the airplane. And so I just boom, went off that bank, and a big, huge cut bank. And then the beach was sloped pretty good. So I hit on the spinner and the big tires, just boom, like that. And I remember leaning back in it, and I was like, man, this is really going to hurt. And it hit that, and it was an angle. And so I shot off of that thing and then went into the river. And when I went into the river, that mag wire came off and the engine started. And it just went wide open. And it pulled me across the river. We're talking about water skiing. That's the time that I needed to use water skiing.
So you have done.
So I have done.
Okay.
And it pulled me across the river. And so then when I got on the other side, you know, the river was like the size of this hangar, you know,
Wow.
the deal. And so I pulled the throttle and I went up on the bank on the other side. But I had done some damage to the plane. You know what I mean? I didn't escape free on that one.
Wow.
But, and after those, you know, you get really, really, really jumpy after a while.
So you're thinking about it. It trains you to think.
It changes your thinking when you're flying out over a glacier, and you know you look around and you're like, okay, this is my distance I can glide, and there's nothing down there that's going to be friendly. You know, I mean, you're going to really.
Where would you land on a glacier?
Oh,
if it was just like big crevasses, would you just land with the direction of the crevasse and chop the wings off?
It is real.
Hopefully you just get wedged in there, you just hang out
Yeah.
until
And
someone comes along and plucks you out.
I know, it's like you think about it all the time, and you look and you look and you look, and there is no nice spot most of the time. But no, that the engine failures change your way of looking at things really hard, you know. And these are great engines. They don't fail. I mean, over the years of the time that I have and places I've been, you know, I've been pretty.
Yeah, they've been pretty reliable.
Been very reliable engines, you know.
There's always like comments about engines and people that aren't in aviation and going, they're using 1915 technology or whatever, you know, whatever it is, 1930s technology still. It's so backward. It's like, I'll take that. Yeah. That's what I want. I want that technology that's been around for a long time and it's been proven.
And that's what I'm seeing a lot at the shop now, what we're building and the technology that's coming out. It's like, it's not, the old technology is there.
Yeah.
It works. And this new stuff, you know, it's not.
Right. But that doesn't mean that someone shouldn't be experimenting.
Right.
I'm just not the guy.
Right. Yeah. And there is it's really neat. There's, you know, with all the advanced timing and changing and power and everything like that, there's a lot of stuff. But in my world, I'm not quite there yet with it.
Any other stories on that list that you want to talk about?
And I don't know, you know, I had a problem in some deep snow one time. I don't know if I talked about this before.
No.
With one of my, and it's like we always get snow. Of course, it snows every year, you know what I mean? And so one thing I didn't really realize was if you have an airstrip that you use all the time and that you constantly, you know, you have to land on this end and most of the time you stop before you run off the other end of it. You know what I mean? And so you have this thing, and this one airstrip that I'm talking about, it always has a tailwind. It's a one-way strip. And I've tried to fix it. It just doesn't work.
Fix it, meaning
cut trees out or lengthen it or whatever. But the terrain it just doesn't fit to where you can land on it both ways. And so you have to land on this one end of it. And like I say, you always have a tailwind. And so what I didn't realize was the mind. And so when you do something on just one time after another, and you get so used to landing like right here all the time, right here all the time. And so what we had a bunch of snow, and So the guy shoveled it, and I was talking to him on the radio, and they said, okay, we got it shoveled as best we can with what we have. But I mean, it was like knee deep.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had dug it all back, and I looked at it and it looked pretty good. But the problem was it was snowing again. And so it's like, I kind of need to get these guys out of there, because it's going to snow again, and then they're going to have to shovel it again. And then it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And even the guide told me, he goes, I didn't shovel it all the way to the end. And I go, well, how much? And he goes, about 6 to 8 feet, maybe. I didn't finish shoveling. And I was just like, oh, I'll
6
just
to 8 feet.
extend over it. And
to the touchdown side.
right. I'll just extend over that little bit at the end and then hit down on it, and I'll be just fine, But bad visibility. When I got in there, all of a sudden, as soon as I started to approach, snow started sticking on my window a little bit. And the small little ding, ding, ding was like, don't do it. You know what I mean? It's not right. It's not the deal. And long story short, what I did was I landed in the exact same spot that I've been landing for 20 years. And so I landed in the spot he didn't shovel. And I've wrestled with that quite a bit, and I've gone back in there and landed over and over. And it is. I go look at my wheel tracks, and I pretty much, it's not that I'm good. It's just I have to land there in order to stop, and I couldn't make myself not. Ooh, it didn't work.
Wow. That makes total sense, actually.
Yeah, and so that cost me a lot of money. And so
You flipped it right there at the end.
yeah. And it was a solid snow, you know what I mean? And so it flipped instantly.
That's a great story, lesson wise. I feel like, because like if you had said, "Look, I'm drawing line in the sand. Go out there and shovel it," and you're not going to be able to circle around in low vis, and so it's like, well, you got to turn around and go back, right?
Yeah,
and then come back later, but then they're going to have to shovel. Yeah,
shovel it again.
There's so much stacked against you in that.
Yeah.
That.
And then my brother Cole, he was right behind me. And so he was there also. So it was like, okay, I can get in, get a guy, get out. And then he comes in, lands, gets a guy and get out. And then, all we have left in there is a guide, and we're good. You know what I mean? And he can snowshoe out. Poor guy.
Yeah.
But that's.
So what did Cole do?
He just circled over, and I told him, he just wanted to make sure I was okay. And there's nothing that he could do. And so I told him, well, what we'll do is, and we actually had a satellite phone. And so I said, I'll call you with a list of parts. And so then what he ended up doing was, it took us a while to get the airplane off the middle of the runway and get it off to the side to where he could come back in. And so then we cleaned the runway better and got it all ship shape. But the weather wouldn't let us alone. It just kept snowing and kept getting bad. And so he came in and he brought what I wanted. And he brought me a set of lift struts and a tool bag and stuff like that. And so then then he was able to get the clients out. And so he came in and landed twice and got the clients out. And he brought me, it was so funny because he was trying to get in and out of there, and it has a tailwind. He's got snow, almost up to the jerry struts on the sides going in there. It's like a scary place. And so he brought me, it was 7 gallons of gas. That's what he ended up bringing me. And then he goes, I left 10 gallons on the river. And it's right down by Jimmy Brown Lakes. It's right on the way home, and big sandbars. And so he just put 10 gallons there. And so I was like, well, I'm set. And then he got them out and left, and the weather got bad. And so me and the guy that was there, we fixed the airplane. And
the guide?
Yeah, the guide. Yeah. And so we put the other struts on, and we beat the leading edge back out on it, the stuff that you needed to do and everything. And the worst part was that the windshield was busted out of it. And so we found all the pieces, and it took us another half a day to find the middle piece. There was a middle piece. I found all the other pieces, and so I drilled it and sewed it all back together with safety wire. And then we finally found that piece, so I was able to sew that together, and I was like, yeah, I got a windshield. And so and we were able, but the worst part about it was the next day, it was crystal clear, just beautiful day. And I was like, okay, man, we're fine. So we put the 7 gallons of gas in, and we got all ready to go, and we launched, and we took off and come around the corner like that. The whole country was just one big, huge fog blanket.
Oh.
It was about, I don't know, several 1,000 feet or so thick. And it was just cotton.
So you were up high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were up high
like,
in the mountains. And so when we come around the corner, it was just fog. And so I was like, so we're on top with 7 gallons of gas. So it's time to lean. It's time to throttle back, and try to make this thing make the house,
did you know that the house isn't under fog?
No. It's like there's really no going back unless we were going to crash again.
You can't land back there?
Well, I was concerned about it with the airplane being crippled.
Yeah, you might be able to not fly as slow.
Not be able to slow it down, or something. Man. And so
yeah,
we would have to that. So I thought, well, maybe because there's always wind around Jimmy Brown Lake right there. Maybe blow the fog out. I could get the gas, and no. And I kind of circled. It's like, no way. It was just solid type of thing. And so we headed on to the deal, and then Jess told me, he was like, can you just get us across the river? We can walk from here. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, we'll try. We couldn't find a place at all. And we just kept on up the river, on up the river, on up the river. And I was like, then you start sweating, you're just like.
That's when you started sweating?
Yeah. It was like, is the house going to be open to get there, and be able to get landed? And of course, I've got this, it's 170 horse engine, so it's a bigger engine, burning quite a bit of gas. And so I keep working, and I was like, and then I could start to see it was broke up a little bit. It was over the house, but it was broke up down from us. So I was like, I think I can get under it. And so I went down that way, and it took us longer than what I thought to try and figure out a way to get around it and everything. And I was just like, man, so I'm watching the road, I'm watching everything, because it's going to quit pretty quick. And so I get around, line up on the runway, poof, wheels down. I'm rolling out, quits.
That is like the best story ever. That is so crazy.
Like crazy, and I was just like, oh man. And that's why that when you get older, you're thinking about this stuff when you're flying all the time. You know what I mean? You're thinking about engines quitting. You're thinking about this, and you're thinking, and you need to stop. When I was younger, I flew across air, just never even thought about it. But now you begin to think,
Would the best decision in that scenario been just to go back and crash on the runway again? I mean,
it probably was, and at the time, you just have to just keep going along. And like I say, your throat gets dry, and you kind of
channeling Wendy, you got to just be chill.
You got to be chill. Yeah, just like do to do, and go along. But no,
wow,
I think
that's incredible.
Yeah,
man.
I really appreciate you sharing some of those things, because there's a lot of value in you risking your life so that I can learn a lesson.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, and I don't want to sound, it's like, well, I got away with it, and I'm good, and I was this and everything. But no, that's not it. You're working, you're trying to make a living, and shit happens, and you're just like, okay, how do I get out of this? And then it's like, well, okay, I made it out that time, but I don't want to go back and duplicate it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so,
yeah, why test fate?
Right. Yeah. Don't keep doing that. It's like, well, I know how to do this. You know what I mean? And, I've taken off of mountaintops, the bad weather days and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden everything goes bad. And so you're right against the side of the mountain, coming down at a really high rate of speed, because you can't see nothing.
So you're clinging, thinking you'll get below fog or something.
Right. And so you're tucking against the side of the mountain, you're coming down, and it's like not getting any better. You're like, I'm going to break out. And it's like, I'm not. And then, terror sets in. And so you don't want to do that anymore. So it is.
So how many times have you done that?
Quite a few. Because it always gets you in a different angle.
You're like, well, this time it's different.
Yeah, this time it's good. The clouds are a little different, and it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, I heard someone say recently, well, we took off from the glacier into fog because we knew we would break out.
mhm.
And my question was like, well, and this is someone I really respect, by the way, so I'm not like trying to dog them on anything, but like, how did you know?
Right.
And the answer is they didn't,
No.
I think.
Right.
Maybe there's something in there I don't understand, but I think the answer is that they didn't know.
Right. And we have a
But
lot of
there's a lot of experience they had that told them that was a high chance, I guess.
right, and it's like the temperature now. We have these weather things and everything like that, and it's like, oh, it's going to rain in the next 10 minutes, and it's like, oh, it's raining, and so you kind of get that. Okay, the temperature and the dew point is. I've got that down there, and they're not together. So when I get down there, it should be out of the fog, and that's all nice and everything like that. But it's a shake of the dice. You know what I mean? And then you have your airplane, whether it's going to run or not, out on top.
Whether it's going to run or not.
Well, if you get in the fog and your engine quits,
Oh yeah, you're screwed.
you're hammered. You're riding her down, and you're hoping that you're going to see something.
That when
before
the
you hit
trees
it.
come out of the fog,
Yeah.
you're between two of them.
Yeah, you got to be between those two trees. No. Oh, crazy! But
I think we should probably. What time is it?
yeah,
It's noon. So, perfect. That gives us the perfect amount of time to talk about the 4-place cub.
hmm
And I've been thinking a lot about 4-place cubs lately.
yeah.
I have 2 kids.
Yeah.
This is the first year that I'm like, I kind of put my foot down that I'm not going to take my whole family in the 2-place anymore.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking, well, maybe the 4-place is the answer.
The 4-place, and I guess what we could do is talk about the good side, the bad side,
Yeah.
and cover the basis for it. Because one thing, it is a Super Cub.
Does it fly like a Super Cub?
Yeah.
Does it?
It flies better than a Super Cub, and I can honestly say that now.
Well, you couldn't before?
Well, it's like if you look at it, and it's big, and it's heavy, and it's this and it's that, and so most people are just like, rah, everything. But there's a lot of proof now, and I've got other people that will back me up on it.
Like who backs you up?
Well, Paul Claus will back me up on it.
Yeah,
and-
he doesn't have much credibility.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he doesn't. And
I'm kidding. It's a joke.
And there is other people out there that have flown the 4-place.
What does a McMahon think about it, Chuck?
Yeah, they love theirs. Yeah, and they have 2. And then other people that fly the 4-place, then they don't go back to their Super Cub. It's a comfortable airplane to fly. It's very docile. It doesn't do anything crazy. And it carries weight because of the way it's designed, and so it's user friendly. As far as you got your wife, and the 2 kids in the back seat, and you got your camping gear behind. Everything is right underneath the wing, and so it doesn't fly tail low. It flies tail high, even on landing. It comes in like this, and so you just look at your runway and just boom.
So if I put wife in the front, 2 kids in the back, let's say they're like 10 and 8 years old, and then we put 250 pounds of camping gear behind. Is it going to fly like that? Is that the kind of configuration? Or like how much can you put in that back section? I guess the baggage on it is in the same place as the baggage on this, right?
Right.
But it's just wider, so you can put more.
You can put more in it. You can't overload it because it's so big and everything.
Yeah.
And it's like with your gas. If you have the 18-gallon tanks in it, which a lot of people are going with the longer range tanks, they start getting heavy, But if you're certified and you have the 18-gallon tanks and all 4 of you are in it, and you have 150 pounds of gear in it, then you're going to be pushing the limits of
The aft limits?
the gross weight.
Okay.
Just numbers.
But what about the balance? Where is it going to be balanced wise? Is it going to be?
It'll hang right in there. The CG will hang right in there with you and your wife and me and him in the back seat and 100 pounds of gear in it. It'll still be in the envelope because all the weight, it doesn't shift that much.
Randy Sherman was telling me that because he's building, about that, but the belly pod, that's a no-go on those, that they just fly terrible with the belly pod. Is that true?
They don't fly as well with the belly pod on it. I put one on, took one off, and flew it. It's okay. It may cruise a little bit faster, but when you go to flare it, it won't do the ground cushion thing like they do. It'll just kind of and go to the ground. And that's my experience with
that makes sense to me.
Right. A lumber rack kills them. You do not want to put a lumber rack on a 4-place cub. And I hauled the whole cabin in with mine and sweated every inch of it. And even with it just under there with nothing under it, it's still the stall speed. You've got, you lose 8 or 9, 10 mile an hour in stall speed with it. Because the belly flies on them. And that's one of the key things with the 4-place. The wings are longer, they're out further.
Right.
And then the fuselage actually creates lift with the airplane.
How should I configure it? What should the engine, the flaps, all these options, if I go experimental, how should I configure it?
Just a standard 180 horse one with a decent prop. And then you got an engine that runs a really long time. You don't have to worry about anything with it. And the pistol flaps do help on your approach.
If you're doing experimental, would you make long flaps, or do you like the short, like stock ones?
But the difference between the stock ones and the deal is a couple mile an hour. It's not a huge amount. It's some on it, and it's according where. And I guess this is where it comes down to is the money. You know what I mean? Because if you put, what we're finding is you put the big flaps on, you need to go back in and beef up the wing.
That's weight.
That's weight. And so you're going to have a heavier airplane with bigger flaps, and it may fly a little bit slower. But if you use the standard flaps and bring them down 55 to 60 degrees and keep the airplane light, you've got...
What is that airplane going to weigh if I watch my weight?
Yeah, they're pretty consistent. One like that is going to weigh about 1260 to 1300. It's according tires, landing gear, whether you put the big shock absorbers on, little shock, stuff like that. That scares a lot of people, but the airplane flies really well at that weight. The Hulk actually, before I took it apart, I don't know what it's going to weigh right now when I get it to now, but it was, it's right at 1,400 pound airplane.
Wow. And it had a 180 on it?
Yeah.
What does a Super Cub that you build, like a standard Cub, what does it weigh if you watch weight when you get done with it?
Yeah, if you build a stock Super Cub and don't...
Like let's do the same options. The 180 horse, the pistol flaps, what would it weigh compared to the 4-place?
If you go ahead, it's going to weigh around about 1230.
So you're really not adding much weight by going 4-place.
No, you're going to add about 6 pounds to for the 6 to 8 pounds on the fuselage.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it may be a little more than that on some of the fuselages.
If you got glass on the top, that's going to weigh more because you got 6 inches more or whatever.
Right.
How much wider is it?
Yeah, it's not. It's a little bit short of half, probably 2 inches shorter than like 2 fuselages put together. It's 41 inches across.
And then what does it cruise at? Does it the same speed?
It's slower. It's the same speed. You'll run about 90 with it if you get the right prop on it.
What's the right prop?
That's a tough one there. But the Cato, just a straight Cato wood prop, the 83 inch and the deal, they're a very good prop, but you can't cut trees with them and stuff like that.
What do you mean you can't? What do you mean?
Well, they are a wooden prop. I mean, they're a fiberglass type prop and stuff, and so you got to be careful with them. You got to retorque them. There's a maintenance thing that you need to do with them, but they're so light and everything like that. And I've run one quite a bit on the experimental at home, goofing off with that, and that one works really well. The ground adjustables work really well at sea level. I have not. It's my own thing. Don't want to argue about it. I've had trouble with them at altitude.
Yeah, you told me that, and I've been kind of workshopping that theory around, and there's a lot of people that disagree with you. I have a hard time going, well, when I look at that prop versus like a Cato, I'm like, it just looks thin, and I kind of am like, I can see where at altitude it just is not enough beef to it. It just doesn't look like it.
Right.
That's very uneducated.
Right, and that's what you get into with that because I come from the old props, the short props, the standard Cub props and everything. You fly them and they're just like, people are like, well, why would I want a bore prop? Man, my prop works perfect. I take off, I go places, I do things with it and everything like that. But take it to 6,000 to 7,000 feet and put a really big load in it. and then go full throttle with it, and it doesn't move. It takes a while for it to accelerate, to get moving. And then you take and put a bore prop on it and see what it does, and accelerates it. It gets it
So
going.
interesting.
So there's a thing with it. And that one, I have never just taken them up and just kept pitching them and loading them and pitching them and loading them, until I got it to where I wanted it. And there may be a solution to that, you know what I mean? But I mean, they work. They're a good prop. I mean, and they're legal. And you can buy them and get them, so that's a big thing. Or some of this other stuff is you can't get it.
Yeah.
How do people get in touch with you if they want to have one of those built?
I could probably text you with a
Website or something?
with a website.
I would say this: if you want to get a 4-place Cub built, you're fairly easy to find.
Yeah, I know. Just look for K-Air Service. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, comment on the video and be like, I want the 4-place Cub built.
Yeah.
How do I get a hold of them?
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on, and very generous with your stories, and
Oh, okay. Well, I hope
I
they,
appreciate that.
I want to share some stuff with people. I don't want to be haughty about it or anything like that, but the things that's happened to me, and maybe it'll make somebody think a little bit and, not get hurt. There's kind of an old time rule, you know what I mean? If you tell somebody something, they go out and try it and kill themselves, and then you have to live with it. So you don't do it. And so
you don't tell them because they're going to hurt themselves.
Right. And so what you end up doing is suggesting, you know what I mean? Or just, and what you'll do is you'll be talking to them and they'll say, yeah, one time I did this and it didn't work so well. And what they're trying to do is tell you, don't do it, and because most people, young pilots, when you tell them don't do it, guess what? They're going to go do it, and so that's kind of the thing. And so you have to kind of take and listen to them real carefully,
Because they don't come right out and say it, in other words.
Right. And then people will go out and do it and say, I did that just fine. Well, you got away with it.
Do you think that you're like that with people, with younger guys? Do you think you're that guy now?
Yeah, I try to a little bit. I'm and that's the thing. You never see yourself as this expert pilot guy. You're just a guy who survived is what you see.
Yeah.
And so you try to share stuff with you, but you can't get too like, well, this is the way you do it, boys. You just, that doesn't come off very well, and if you share a lot of things with people, then all of a sudden, well, I went over and talked to that guy and gee whiz, you know what I mean? He knows everything. And so you have to balance.
Because that's funny. That's funny because I feel like that's happened with the podcast a little bit, where someone will come in here and say a lot of things in a definite way.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, oh, it's super offensive because this guy is just thinks he's better than everyone.
Right. He thinks he knows.
I don't know if I think he thinks that. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that it just comes off that way. Anytime you say something like, this is how it is.
Yeah. And that's how it comes off. And so you have to kind of balance that.
Yeah.
And try to tell somebody, well, I tried this one time and it didn't really work well for me, and just trying to pass stuff on. And anytime that somebody says they're really good, the crash is not far to follow. It's just the way it is, you can't get away from it. But for sure. So, okay. Well,
thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All righty. You bet.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, thanks for watching. You obviously enjoyed this content, so please subscribe to our channel, comment, let us know what you thought, and if you want to support our ability to make more episodes, visit coffeeinahanger.com and subscribe to our email list. Thank you.